So,
Will do. So,
all right. So the Hangouts live. Hello to everybody who's watching the video after the fact. I'm Jonathan. Mo is here. We actually haven't invited anybody else to this video yet, so you're getting the strange onboarding minutes.
yes, front row seats to the prep time.
This video yet, so you're getting the. All right. All right. Let's see. I'll share this in the channel. This is the behind the scenes you came here for.
The high-tech prep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. I do enjoy sending things to the entirety of one of the large channels in Data for Democracy or the entire community, because I get that little message that pops up and Slack is like, are you serious? Do you want to send this to 3,000 people? Like, yes. Yes, Slack. Yes, I do.
Yeah. It's a nice check-in.
It is. It is. And it is also like a nice reminder that like there are a lot of people whose phone is about to buzz. Before, just think before you act. All right. Got a couple minutes. Very exciting.
Yeah. I won't even look at Slack unless I need to. So.
All right, I'll hang out in the channel.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah. Hello to people who are joining. We're getting there. We'll do something more substantive here in like just a minute, making sure we're actually starting right around on time.
Yeah. Is this your first live YouTube?
It is my first live YouTube. And I used to be on a podcast, and everybody, I think, got the vibe that like it was just us hanging out and chatting like, you know, you would on like a Skype or like a live YouTube hangout. And the truth is that you can edit it, of course, because it's a podcast. And so occasionally we would say embarrassing things, or like we just like lose our train of thought, or like wander down an alley that was super boring and nobody wanted to hear about. And then none of that would actually make it into the podcast that people heard. So this is a new experience, just having to be competent in real time. But I'll do my best.
My first live YouTube also, so I'm excited.
All right, cool. So it looks like it's right at 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Austin Standard Time, which is where I am. Hi, I'm Jonathan Morgan. I'm here with Mo. Mo, you want to say hello?
Hi, I'm Mo. I'm on Pacific Time. Really excited to be here.
Awesome. So we'll kick things off. And pretty much what we wanted to do with this town hall was just to re-energize the project a little bit, let folks know what's happening. Obviously, we've had some really big news. So just to reiterate what I said in the Slack channel, of course, congratulations to everybody who's been involved in the project, both you who are watching this live and anybody who catches this afterwards. It's a huge accomplishment and a testament to all of the hard work that you put in getting the code of ethics to where it is now, kind of going through the hours in the working groups, debating things out in the Slack channel, gathering all of those resources into something that other people could understand and consume. Obviously, a lot of people were excited about it. There's a huge amount of momentum behind the project. And so Omidyar was excited to support it, like to support the work and to support the work that the community is doing. And so we just wanted to take some time to walk you through how we'd organize that that funding with Omidyar, kind of how we see the project going over the next 12 months, and really what it looks like to go from the phase that we were in, getting the project or getting the code of ethics to the really amazing place that it already is and where we think about taking it to the next step. And so just to reiterate, if you're in the Slack channel as well, feel free to ask questions or ping. I'm trying to keep an eye on the Slack channel as we're going. And so I'll get back to you. Don't worry about interrupting. We'll take an appropriate pause to get to questions as they come up. So I'll do a quick overview of kind of how we see the next 12 months, and then I'll turn it over to Mo, who's really going to be kind of running things from here on out. The big thing is that we organized this project with Omidyar around one kind of central idea that we would try and get 100,000 signatures, so basically 100,000 votes of support on the core principles. So the Code of Ethics as it is, we would get 100,000 people to sign it. And I mean, it can continue to evolve. You know, we assume that it'll be a living document. We'll figure out how to do kind of ongoing governance. And but the idea is that we're really rallying the global community of data practitioners around this ethics principle, like these principles, these ethical principles, as a kind of bedrock of doing data, part of the almost like part of the identity of what it means to be a data practitioner in industry or academia, or just for fun. So the reason that we picked that number again was like, you know, there's probably a few different ways to go about it. We thought we could, you know, getting 100,000 signatures on some document is probably pretty straightforward if we kind of put our minds to it. But we really wanted that. We want that to represent like an engaged, active, dynamic, participatory community. So for us, it's kind of like, it's a symbol, obviously, because it's a really big number that shows that there's a social consensus around ethics being at the core of what data practitioners work on. But I think even more than that, if we do it right, it really represents that this idea is embedded into our workplaces, it's embedded into our universities, it's embedded into the way that sort of data and sort of best practices around ethical use of data. And so that's what we're organizing around. So Mo has joined us as the community manager for the project. So she's going to be in the community kind of day in and day out, week in and week out, and I'll let her talk a little bit more about that. We're also talking with other folks who might join as additional full-time staff to help participate in managing the community, organizing the working groups, developing kind of the written, almost like policy platform around both the kind of Code of Ethics and the larger relationship between data and technology and society. We're talking about forming some high-level partnerships with organizations like, you know, large technology companies and media institutions and universities to really figure out how we can take this kind of go like top down and bottom up at the same time to get to a place where there really is this kind of broad consensus that we want to take an ethical approach to doing data. So that's where we are. We have 12 months to do it. I think it's a lofty goal, but I think it's important. And I think that it's achievable. So I guess with that in mind, Mo, I'd like to turn it over to you, and you can talk folks through a little bit about how you're thinking of kind of taking the reins here and figuring out how things are going to work in the community over the next, well, how we're going to get started, and then, you know, kind of where we're going to go over the next 12 months.
Right, cool. Hi, everyone, I'm Mo. I know quite a few of you already because I've been involved in the Code of Ethics project, I think since they asked for volunteers to work as moderators. So I started as a moderator, ended up presenting at the Data for Good conference in San Francisco, and then got involved with several other organizers to create this incredible community-generated document. And after we created it, as Jonathan explained, the next step is, so what do we do now? How do we kind of take this momentum, keep this engagement going, and keep the people that have been involved in it for the past several months engaged, and then spread that kind of excitement about ethics and tech. It's a really just opportune and interesting time right now in technology. So as I'm leading the community forward, a couple things that I'm really interested and excited to do is I'd really like to make the Data for Democracy Code of Ethics community to be a trusted peer-to-peer resource for ethical questions and discussions and concerns and successes. And I view a few different ways to do that as we are entering phase 2. First of all, technology evolves, so the Code of Ethics for data scientists will also evolve, and our engagement with that process is going to be extremely important. I'd like to propose that we actually make a weekly discussion on an ethical topic and make that almost like a regular happy hour thing where everybody's coming in and getting involved on like a particular ethical issue. And I have some ideas on how we can set that up and kind of rotate responsibilities and keep this a really community-driven process. The other thing too is I think it's important to consider as we move forward, kind of adopting an attitude of collective action and support for applying the code of ethics in the world within Data for Democracy, but then also in the outside world. So creating kind of a core of ambassadors that can communicate and relate and integrate some of the ethical conversations and discussions that we're having out in the world outside of Data for Democracy. And with that in mind, I also want to set times when I'm definitely available for these type of questions that could be publicly asked or privately asked. So I want to set up a set of office hours. Technically, my first day is Monday, so it'll probably take about a week or two to really roll out some of that structure. But I want to hear from you and what you think about this, or what you want from a community of ethically minded data practitioners, and the type of things that you might want to engage on or discuss. It's really, this is still very much a community-driven project. So, yeah. And I also want to take a moment and just like acknowledge all the hard work of everybody who's been involved, including Natalie, who's really, really kind of driven a lot of this. It's just, I learned so much the past several months from everybody around me, and I wouldn't be here at all if it weren't for kind of the energy and passion of this community itself. So please feel free to ask questions.
Cool. Actually, and I'm really glad that you made a special call out to Natalie. I mean, everybody knows Natalie from working on the project, but I do think that it's without her leadership, the project wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be a relationship with Bloomberg. We wouldn't we would still be wishing that somebody accepted the responsibility to get things started. So I think it really is kind of, again, like remarkable that everybody got to this point. And I'm glad, Mo, that you mentioned Natalie in particular. We do have a question that we can jump into. So Joe in the chat suggested, or he asked, do we need to start organizing support around translation of the Code of Ethics? And if so, which languages?
Right. That was, and I think that would be something where I think we need to put that into a timeline if that's something that we as a community want to do. This first year, I think will be maybe not focused on that in the first few months, but it was something that we had discussed. Initial languages, the most popular languages in the world, I suppose, so that we can have the most spread and penetration. I think it's important to acknowledge that the Code of Ethics is a global code, or we hope that it becomes a global code. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I could add that I know I've already had a conversation about some work taking the Code of Ethics and applying it to industry. So actually, it was with one of the community members who's based in France. So presumably is asleep right now, but had a really interesting project that was starting inside of a large enterprise where he works, and taking some of the principles that this community has established and other kind of similar projects. They've been translated into French, and like linguistically and culturally, and thinking about how to apply those to an enterprise environment. So there's definitely work like that on the horizon, and I agree with Mo. I think ultimately this is a global project.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. It looks like there's a question. Somebody's typing, so I don't want to. There's a question coming in. But yeah, so I think in general, it'd be great to hear, kind of like Mo was saying, as everybody's kind of coming back to the project over the next kind of weeks and months, to really make sure that it's a dialogue, and we know what type of, like, how it is that you all want to both continue to build on top of the principles, to work with each other, to kind of hash out ideas and debate what it means to be kind of embedding ethics in the practice of doing data analysis and data science. And then also how you'd like to advocate or evangelize for data and ethics out in the communities where you live, whether it's where you live physically, where it's other online communities that you're a member of, whether it's some kind of blend between data and other types of civic or social impact or ethical technology projects. So, we're very much interested in this being out and embedded in the community. So whether it's partnering with other organizations or helping you participate in, meetups and hangouts and meetings and presentations and conferences. Make sure that like the program that Mo was talking about, the ambassador program, I think is really going to be a huge part of how we engage the community outside of the one that's already in Slack and that's really incubated this so far. So please share your ideas. We'd love to be.
The other thing I want to add is like if to like basically go out and talk about ethics outside of the Data for Democracy community, you won't be alone. Like we would like to create various support mechanisms through which you could feel most confident and assured that when you're going out, like we have your back, basically. So. Completely.
So there are a couple other questions. So Soren has asked, when building out resources for data ethics in practice, do you think it might be valuable to connect to some additional broad ethics research organizations to get an idea of how other industries have recently composed similar resources? So specifically, they mentioned the Center for the Study of Ethics in the Professional, or in the Professions, the Center for the Study of Ethics in the Professions, which is where Soren used to work.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think that would be a great resource and kind of intellectual collaboration. Definitely what I've seen in the Data for Democracy community is that on any project I've volunteered with, people have brought outside knowledge in and used that to strengthen what we do. And then, so it's not just a dialogue within our community, it becomes a dialogue with other communities as well to really get some of that collaboration, because some people have done this or parts of it before, and it'd be good to take those ideas and really integrate and use them. So do you want to add anything to that?
I know, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think that it's a moment in which I think a lot of industries, in particular, a lot of different aspects of the technology industry are thinking about ethics, maybe more than they had previously. So I think it's a really good moment, of course, to be having this conversation, and then also to build bridges between other like-minded groups, both just for expanding the community, but also just for practical reasons, which is, I think, the comment that Soren was making, that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I think we can learn a lot from other people who've done really good work.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see. So Mark mentioned that he had also posted this as a Google Doc, or in the Google Doc, that he is suggesting that we should outline good interoperability, or a good interoperability practice as an incentive to adopt a standard, and it saves everyone time. Otherwise, if getting adoption is about compliance, like for privacy, they might not get broad adoption. So like he asks, we should promote cost saving and privacy alongside each other. Thoughts?
Yeah, so, what's interesting is, so I moderated specifically for the Responsible Communications group. And what was neat about that was that people came from different industries, which had kind of different pressure points. So some people were from nonprofits, some people were academia, and some people were more from the private sector. I think it would be interesting to build out kind of guides or support from knowledge from all these different industries, so that the code of ethics can be applied along these pressure points, for lack of a better word, and also to utilize just that knowledge that ethics is awesome, but there are trickier situations where it can be applied than others. So.
Yeah, completely. It's almost kind of like the ethical principles that we come up with here are maybe, because we're the kind of grassroots community working on it, that they could be, they're almost the most broad or the most foundational, and then it kind of reaches in and maybe gets more specific or translated slightly if corporations want to adopt it, or other institutions that might have more constraints or different motivations, like profit motivations, for example, and need to tailor it to their use case.
Right, and I think it'd be interesting too, if we're having these weekly conversations, we could make one topic be, a focus like this, particularly if somebody wanted to help lead or was an expert in a particular sector. I think that's where the community can really step in and identify needs outside, at their companies or nonprofits or academia, where the code of ethics can really have a bang for its buck. Yeah.
Well, and other comments are kind of popping into the channel. So if you just happen to be watching the video and you weren't following along in Slack, just as this is for the people watching the recording, do go check out the Code of Ethics channel in the Slack from the conversation around when this was going on, which was July 5th at 6:30 Pacific. So if you scroll back to that, there's some, Stephen and some other folks have been dropping in resources about other ethics projects that are taking place, universities that have strong ethics programs. So there's a little bit more context to the conversation that you can find there that we, I'm sure we'll be digging into generally as a community, but just for your context as a viewer.
Great. Yeah, and thank you everybody who's putting in resources. Like that just shows how everybody's interested and passionate and really has so much to offer. So.
Fantastic. Well, should we leave it another, if anybody has any other questions, it looks like some of the, we might be at the end of kind of open questions right now. I'll leave it just for a second, but then Mel, maybe you can remind everybody who's watching on video, or just we can drop this in the channel as well, about how folks who have ongoing questions, who maybe think of them later, or other thoughts that they have, how you'd like them to share them with you or the kind of community in general.
Right. So please feel free to continue asking questions even after we stopped filming. That's the awesome thing about these type of stuff. My first day is technically Monday. So if you send me some questions, I might not get to it until Monday, but feel free. We're going to set up some regular times where I know for sure I'm always online and available to answer immediately. And that'll probably be determined in the next couple weeks. But if you have a public question, please feel free to continue what we've been doing and ask it on the P Code of Ethics channel. I think that's just hashtag P Code of Ethics, where everybody is right now, maybe. Or also, if you have a more private question or you just want to get to know me, please just send me a direct message at Mo, which is one of the easiest usernames out there. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from y'all and yeah, joining the project more officially. So.
Fantastic. Yeah. And yeah, as we do more of these, and over the next really kind of week or two, as more of the folks who will be kind of staffing the Code of Ethics project will be coming on board, we'll introduce those folks to you, so you'll have a way to get in contact with everybody who's working on it. Yeah, and I think that it'll be looking forward to reestablishing some momentum and getting the ball rolling. So thanks everybody for joining. And yeah, definitely encourage everybody. There's an interesting conversation going on the channel right now. So scroll back and check it out if you missed it. And then, yeah, and we'll be doing these on kind of a regular basis. And so we're looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, and I think the next official one is already scheduled, though. It's kind of another question and answer for July 13th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Is that correct?
That's right.
Awesome. Okay.
All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody for joining, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. Take care. Bye.